Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 151 of Crunch Time. I'm going to be your host of today's episode. I am Tanner Dislin, and as always, I am joined by Sam Godsey. Sam, how are we doing on this marvelous Monday?
You know, we got a huge game tonight. The Cowboys versus the Bengals in Springfield.
Don't worry, we've got the TV on. The Simpsons broadcast.
Of course.
So
I mean, the NBA Cup games are tonight.
Sure.
Definitely tuned into that.
If they had a Simpsons broadcast of that, maybe we'd watch, but
I still don't think I'd
watch.
But I mean, championship week was last weekend. We'll talk about it here in a few moments, but honestly, as a whole, pretty boring. But those three games are pretty freaking awesome. So.
Yep, there were a few good ones, no doubt. A few blowouts.
Friday was definitely snooze fest for sure.
Friday was a little bit of a snoozer, but we will get to that in a minute. This is going to be a majority college episode. We're going to go through the games of championship weekend, and then of course we do have a playoff bracket to break down. We will talk about that. We also have Heisman finalists announced, so we will get into that a little bit as well. We will not talk about the NFL games on a game-by-game basis, and then we will have players of the week to wrap it up, and then no pick'em this week. Just because there's the college. We're kind of wrapping up the college and schedule, and it appears we may have a little bit of a tie.
Yeah,
in our guest picker ranking. So we'll get into that, all of that and more, of course, on episode 151. But we will start with our winners and losers. So Sam, hit us with your winner.
Yeah, this earlier last week could have been a major loser, but boy, he performed well. Of course, I'm talking about our guy, Timothée Chalamet, Tanner.
What a beast.
Everyone was pissed when he got announced as the guest picker, and hand up, I definitely agreed. Of all the people, why are we going with Timothée Chalamet? There were talks that he has a new TV show or movie coming out on Disney. So Disney owns ESPN, for those of you who don't know. And it was that people were speculating that's why. So everyone was pissed. College football championship weekend. And he might go down as one of the best guest pickers of all time, Tanner. I mean, he was name dropping. I think he went 4-2. And one of the games he was just like, I'm friends with Matthew McConaughey, so go with Texas. And they probably should have won that game, to be honest with you. But name dropping Parker Navarro of Ohio, the only pick that went with the Ohio Bobcats, ended up being a blowout that game. But shout out Timothée Chalamet, proving all the haters wrong. I mean, how many tweets did you see on Saturday saying, I'm sorry, Timothy, I wasn't familiar with your game. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. That was certainly an upset. I don't know. I mean, it seemed like the desk was surprised too. I don't know if that's something like, they're like, yeah, apparently like Timothée Chalamet does like football, or were they just like, I don't know, let's get this guy. And then he did his research, came out dropping names, and they were like, oh, hello, what happened here?
Yeah.
But it definitely surprised us, and it was pretty awesome to see, especially because not us, of course, we would never do such a thing. But some people out there were not happy with the choice of him to be a guest picker.
Yeah, don't check our X. There were no such tweets.
Not us. Couldn't be us. Never will be us. But that was pretty cool. Yeah, and then the clip of everyone picking Miami of Ohio and him being the only one on Ohio and winning that game in a blowout was certainly going a little bit viral for sure. So shout out Timothée Chalamet. But of course, Sam, everyone knows my winner. Do I even have to say it? It is Juan Soto and the New York Mets, baby. They got it done. They pried that little guy away from the New York Yankees. They agreed on a 15-year, $765 million deal. which is absolutely massive. So Juan Soto quickly becomes that's the biggest contract in sports history, bigger than Patrick Mahomes to the Chiefs, bigger than Lionel Messi to any of his various teams, better than Cristiano Ronaldo. This is the biggest contract signed in sports history, which is pretty nuts. And this is absolutely massive, Sam. It's absolutely massive in so many different ways. First off, baseball-wise, Juan Soto is incredibly unique. I'd say, I mean, it's not going to seem like it because Shohei Ohtani was a free agent last year. Juan Soto is probably the second most unique free agent within the past 50 years because he is obviously so good. And he was so good, so young. In baseball, when you make your rookie year, you have to play 5 years of service time with your current team in order to hit free agency. Juan Soto got to the big leagues when he was 20 years old. And because of that, his age 25 season was his last under his rookie deal, and he hit free agency at 26 years old. That never happens. Free agents usually hit in the high 20s, low 30s. When you're given these deals, you can't go too long because, well, you know, he's going to be old at that point. Well, Juan Soto is 26 years old. So you were able to add on more years to this deal and feel comfortable about him being in his prime for longer. So baseball-wise, obviously massive. He, one of the best players in baseball last year, I believe was probably the third best hitter in baseball behind Judge and Ohtani. And there's a good chance you can make the argument he was the second best hitter in baseball behind Judge. He's just unbelievable what he does for a lineup. His on-base percentage, he's the best eye in baseball. We all know the power he hits for average. There's nothing this guy can't do when it comes to at the plate. Now we can have conversations about his defense. We can have conversations about his base running, whatever. I don't care. He's going to go up and he's going to mash. And of course, he's going to be behind Francisco Lindor, who is second in MVP voting in the National League a year ago. That instantly becomes one of the best 1-2 punches in baseball. If not the best, I think the only one that would have been better is Judge and Soto, which is no longer a duo anymore. Now, all of the baseball reasons, you get why this is huge, Sam, but words cannot describe what this signing means because it was a bidding war between the Yankees and the Mets, and the Mets won. And when you saw the final numbers, he agreed to a 15-year, $765 million deal, which has the potential to become $805 million. The Yankees offered him $760 million. That's not that big of a gap. He looked and he said, nah, I'm good. I want to play for the Mets. You had him for a year. Your precious pinstripes, all of that legacy you had, you thought, no way would Juan Soto leave. He said, nah, I'm good. I'm going to go play for the Mets. I'm going to go play for who I said last year they put up the better fight against the Dodgers. They did not embarrass themselves on a national scale, and they won 2 games and were closer to beating the Dodgers in that series than the Yankees were. He looked at that. He saw the farm ranking systems, and he said, that's a better team. Plus, they're giving me more money, and I'm going to go play for the Mets because I don't give a crap about your damn World Series. I don't give a crap about your damn pinstripes. You can shove all that up your ass because I'm Juan Soto and I go wherever the hell I want to. And he chose to go to the New York Mets. And this is a historic day. The landscape of baseball in New York has completely changed forever. The Mets are no longer the little brother. And now that they have Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor and Mark Vientos, who was incredible during the postseason, they instantly become one of the most attractive places to play in the MLB. Why do so many people keep accepting deferred money to play with the Dodgers? Because they want to be on that good team. They want to play with Ohtani. Well, guess what? You want to do that on the East Coast? The New York Mets are your place to do that and take a little bit less money, maybe take deferred money to come play with generational talents in New York. So words cannot describe how big of a deal this is for the landscape of baseball in New York, for Mets fans. I mean, I almost got emotional thinking about, how many years of my life was I completely tortured by the New York Yankees, signing every free agent they can. The New York Yankees fans knowing that everything they want just falls right into the lap because the New York Yankees, and they'll sign whoever they want. It didn't happen. It finally didn't happen. And the Mets went out in this. So words cannot describe what this means to Mets fans, to me, to people who have lived in the shadow of the Yankees their entire life. Screw that. Queens is the place to be now, and Juan Soto just proved that.
Yeah, it was a historical day for the New York Mets. Obviously, getting a player like Juan Soto definitely is huge. And just another superstar on that loaded team and prying away from a big rival of yours is definitely something to be excited about for the upcoming season.
No doubt about it. And, of course, that's all on the Mets side. And then on the Yankees side, the reaction from Yankees fans has been everything I've wanted and more. They've been crashing out, saying they didn't want Soto at that much, even though the Yankees offered them $760 million. Like, clearly you did. Saying that that he's a sellout, even though he played for the Yankees for 1 year, that he betrayed the Yankees like he owed them anything. It's been amazing to see, and they don't know how to handle themselves when they don't get everything they want, like little children. And they didn't get this one, and they're crashing out, and they don't know what to do because they're not used to living in that world. But get ready because the Mets are here. The Mets are the more attractive location in New York right now, and sit down, little bro. But that was pretty awesome. Sunday was absolutely awesome for a multitude of reasons, and that was the absolute icing on the cake. No words to describe it. I was literally shaking when it went. I, again, can't put into words how much all of that meant. But, of course, now we're looking on the other side of things. Sam, hit me with your loser.
Yeah, my loser is going to be none other than Iowa State's own Jamie Pollard. Their athletic director is coming from some heat on X. ESPN released their Week 15 12-team college football playoff bracket. They had Arizona State 12, SMU. They had SMU in Indiana, and this was before the games were played. And he tweeted, disappointing that strength of schedule clearly does not matter for SMU, Indiana, and Boise State. Message is clear. Win as many games as possible, regardless of who you play. Time to rethink non-con. Scheduling very different standards than basketball, which I tend to agree. But then the SMU AD responded, Jamie, respect you, but bad take. ISU had North Dakota, Iowa, Arkansas State non-con. SMU had Nevada, HCU, TCU, and BYU, and scrambled due to Vandy dropping us. SMU, one of two to win all conference games, one of three with 9 Power 4 wins. Trailed a total of 6+ minutes, last 9 games. I could go on, stay off my lawn. And then Pollard responds, Rick beat Clemson Saturday, and I'll respect your ranking. Until then, you did not play Clemson, Miami, Georgia Tech, or Syracuse, and lost to BYU at home. Looks like your lawn may be artificial. Now, this back and forth is definitely hilarious looking back on it after the two teams' performances during championship weekend. One probably should have won, not probably, should have won the game, and then another one got absolutely slaughtered. It's just funny that Pollard thinks their non-con was so great when they played North Dakota, Iowa, and Arkansas State.
Or Power 4.
Yeah. It was just a funny interaction on X, and he went down swinging, I guess.
We'll talk about this more with some of Alabama's comments. Obviously, Alabama not getting in. I just don't understand for one bit. Pollard, you absolute moron. Your non-con was ass. So was SMU's. But you know what? Most teams are. He's saying you didn't play Clemson. Well, guess what? Iowa State. You didn't play Colorado.
Yeah.
You didn't play BYU. Yeah, they didn't. Who else was at the top of that? They played Kansas State, but is that the only team they played? Oh yeah, and then of course they played Arizona State and got the doors blown off. So I don't know. I don't know what you're saying here. You didn't play the top teams in your division. They didn't play the top teams in their division. You finally did. And now you opened your mouth before you each had an opportunity to play. You finally did. SMU proved they belong. You proved you didn't belong.
Yeah.
So when our AD is going to learn? I don't understand. Shut up. This thing will sort itself out, and then after the rankings come, then you can talk.
Exactly.
If you want to, and you'll most likely be wrong. Because, of course, we did have ADs talking. I mentioned Alabama, and, of course, he is, in fact, wrong. But, just another time where people are freaking out for no reason, believing they deserve it when they clearly don't. So
exactly.
Now, my loser, Sam, I'm going to go to the NFL, and I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. Have you seen this? The Philadelphia Eagles cannot seem to get out of their own way because, well, starting off the season, they were off to a red-hot start. Or, excuse me, they were off to a slow start, and everyone was talking about, the Eagles might not be that good. Then they caught fire. Then they started to get some steam. And now they're 11-2, fighting for the number 1 overall seed with the Lions and the Vikings. Well, after they took on the Panthers, which we all know what the Panthers season has looked like thus far, they did not win, or they won, but they did not win in convincing fashion. It was way dicier than it could have been, and they were one Xavier Legette drop away from losing that game. And but they won. And they moved to 11-2, still fighting for the number 1 seed. And of course, A.J. Brown, the absolute diva he is, when they asked, what's wrong with the offense, he just said one word: passing. Passing. He's completely throwing his quarterback under the bus. Now, a little bit after he said that, Brandon Graham, one of the Eagles team captains, he said, he revealed that there was tension between Hurts and Brown that has been lasting for a while, and said, I don't know the whole story, but I know that 1, Jalen Hurts, is trying. 11, A.J. Brown, could be a little better with how he responds to things. They were friends, but things have changed. So the 11-2 football team is fighting for a number 1 seed. Their quarterback and their wide receiver are fighting.
Can't say I'm surprised.
No, I guess I can't either. I mean, everyone's focused on themselves, no matter how good the team is, no matter what seed you're trying to fight to get.
Mm-hmm.
You got to worry about yourself, apparently. And I will never understand how this happens when, they're fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC. I've said that like 8 times. And I'm going to keep saying it.
Yeah.
And apparently the quarterback and wide receiver are fighting because they're children.
Yeah. Not great. But you kind of mentioned it. A.J. Brown is one of the biggest divas in the NFL. So not great in Philly. We'll see if they can put their beef aside and hopefully lose.
Yeah, hopefully lose.
But we'll see.
And I remember last year when the Eagles were off to their red hot start, there was still he was still not happy because he wasn't getting the ball enough. It's like, dude, get a grip, man.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of understand the last year a little more. Because he's one of the best players on that team on offense. So I get that a little, but this one makes 0 sense. But
yeah, trouble in Philly when there absolutely shouldn't be because of their record, because of the way they've been playing and all of that. So who knows what will happen? But we've got big time loser energy coming out of Philly. But are you ready to talk some ball?
Let's do it.
Because we had an pretty packed championship weekend in college football. I mean, so we'll start out. We'll hit some of the Friday games really quick. Although Friday, Sam, was a little bit disappointing. On Friday, we had the American Championship, and the Army Black Knights were victorious, absolutely beating down Tulane on Friday night, 35-14. And then you had the Mountain West Championship, where Boise State absolutely took care of UNLV 21-7. Those were, and of course, we also had the Conference USA Championship, where Jacksonville State won 52-12 over Western Kentucky. But pretty special season out of Army, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anybody really expected that to happen. But when you got a quarterback like Bryson Daly, he decided to put his team on his back this season and came out as American Conference champions, and all thanks to their quarterback.
Yeah, no, he was absolutely special. There's not much else to say. Army finished 8-0 in the American, was clearly the best team all year long. They do have that one blemish when they kind of got beat up by Notre Dame, but 8-0 in the American, 11-1 overall. Of course, they do have the big one, Army-Navy, at the end or this upcoming week. That's kind of like the Ohio State-Michigan of their season. Hard to call the season a success if you don't beat Navy for Army, but really impressive stuff. Really impressive stuff for Army. And what an incredible season. So there's not much more to be said, I don't think. And then Boise State handling business. Again, they solidify themselves as the best group of 5 team, the highest rank of the group of 5, secured the number 3 seed in the playoff. And of course, we have to check on Ashton Genty, who all he did was go for 209 yards and touchdown.
Yeah, in a position where all eyes were on you. Obviously, we'll talk about it a little later with the Heisman race, but it's really down to 2 players. And in a night where the other candidate wasn't playing, all eyes were on you, and he stepped up big and got Boise State into that first round bye. The college football playoff, something number 12 can't say.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Colorado, right? You said they're not playing in the playoff,
Yeah,
but they have the Heisman.
They're not.
Oh, but they're playing in like the next best bowl, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly not the Alamo Bowl.
No.
A Heisman Trophy winner wouldn't play in an Alamo Bowl.
No.
Okay.
Against a conference opponent.
Yeah. Surely not.
No. Absolutely not.
So
he plays a lot of snaps.
He does play a lot of snaps. One person, as you said, with the team on his back, led his team to the number three overall seed, to the college football playoff, and a bye in that college football playoff. And one person is playing in the Alamo. So take that for what it's worth. And do not hit me with the competition because pound for pound, the Mountain West was just about as good as the Big 12 this year. I don't want to hear anything about the Big 12. What an awful conference it was this year. But hey, how about that segue, huh? Big 12 championship game in Dallas, in Jerry's World. And this was all Arizona State, Sam. 45-19. And it was a couple late scores from Iowa State. It was 45-10 for most of the game.
Yeah, this was an absolute ass whooping. What a sad way to go out for Iowa State. I mean, I talked about their athletic director's comments out, and then they put up this piss poor performance. Their defense got absolutely torched all game. Rocco Beck could do nothing. Arizona State, they let some late touchdowns on defense, but they locked up Higgins and Knoll, the 2 big playmakers for Iowa State's offense. They just shut them down. It wasn't a close game. It was even further separation of talent than the scoreboard says. Arizona State is on the hottest streak we've seen in a while from a football team. And once again, when the lights shone the brightest, they got done in a dominating fashion against a team that was had their first ever 10-win season and going out like that. And it was I can't imagine what it felt like to be an Iowa State fan that day, but I certainly will.
Yeah, they just got dominated, and it was awesome. I mean, it was absolutely purely awesome. The defense got torched. Simply put, they got absolutely lit on fire and burnt to a crisp. Almost 500 yards of offense allowed to Arizona State. A lot of it on the ground. Of course, we know, we all know their running game. We may or may not have more on that later, but this was an absolute dominant performance from Arizona State. Which when you look at the stats, Iowa State had more first downs. Time of possession was about equal. Total yards with the advantage to Arizona State in that running game as well with everything that went on. So absolutely dominant from Arizona State. And this was enough, obviously earn that auto bid, but they did in fact do enough to get that 4 seed and have a first round bye, which is pretty cool for Arizona State. So shout out to Sun Devils. Forks up, absolutely dominated Iowa State. You mentioned a little bit about the MAC championship. Dominant from Ohio as well. Shout out Timothée Chalamet, 38-3 on that. Not going to dive too deep into that. I mean, it was top to bottom, pure domination. So we'll move on to the SEC, Sam. Interesting game. Offense was not all that common, but Georgia gets it done in overtime, 22-19.
Yeah, this was boring till about the fourth quarter, Tanner. It was 6-3 at halftime. I felt like we were watching LSU versus Alabama not a couple years ago, but a little bit ago. But this game went to overtime. It seemed the offensive scheme for both teams was just run a fly route, toss it up, and hope it's a completion, get 1-on-1. And it looked like it was working for Texas for a while, Tanner. But late costly mistakes led this one to go into overtime. Gunnar Stockton had one of the worst picks we've seen in a while. After Carson Beck got hurt, getting Paul driven into the ground. Didn't matter. But yeah, this game was super fun to watch. Obviously, it sucks if you're a Texas fan, but you're still in the play. No matter what, both of these teams are probably in the playoffs. But if you're Steve Sarkisian, you got to be pissed about how many flags Texas had. I mean, I swear there were at least like 5 flags per possession for Texas. And that did not help their case. And then the last play of the game where Stockton ran for to get in the red zone. I think it was like a 2-3 yard. They were on the 2 or 3 yard line, got absolutely jacked up.
Yes.
Helmet off. They so they had to put Carson Beck in, who had a limp shoulder.
Couldn't throw.
Couldn't
move his right arm at all.
And Texas doesn't put 12 men or 11 men in the box. They actually guarded the wide receivers, thinking they were getting past the ball. ETN takes it up the middle for a touchdown. Game over, Georgia. And being crowned SEC champion once again, the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah. So yeah, as you said, both of these teams were in no matter what. Would have been nice. I'm sure Steve Sarkisian and company would have preferred to get that bye, as we get Homer now is playing quarterback. And Homer completes it to CeeDee Lamb down the sideline. I mean, what the heck are we watching? This is awesome. But going back to the game here, it would have been nice for Sarkisian and co to have the bye, but they were in no matter what. But Sam, this game came down to I think three things. Three things. Number one, you mentioned Texas penalties. And number two, Texas' inability to score touchdowns in Georgia's territory. It was a big-time problem in the first half. Texas was absolutely dominating this game in terms of yardage, in terms of time and possession. Here's how their drives went. They had an interception after moving the ball 48 yards. They had a field goal. That was, I'm trying to see how long it was, a 41-yard field goal. So that's from the 24-yard line, so just outside of the red zone. Then they had another field goal, this one a 32-yard field goal, which is on the 15. Then they had a missed field goal, a missed 42-yarder, which is from the 25. Another missed field goal, a 51-yarder that he missed, which is from the 34. Then another interception, and then they got the field goal to end up tying the game. So a lot of field goal attempts in the red zone and in plus territory, a lot of missed field goals in plus territory, and they just were not able to move the ball. They were not able to move the ball, or excuse me, they were not able to turn their ball advancement into points. They just weren't able to. And then sure enough, in overtime, they get the ball on the 25. They settle for the field goal. Georgia wins with the touchdown. So it's you just have to kick. You just have to score touchdowns, and they couldn't do it. And then the last thing is the running game. You mentioned how it seemed like it was working. The pass game was working for Texas. They were absolutely torching the Georgia secondary in the first half. Quinn Ewers had 358 yards passing. Georgia's team, between their two quarterbacks and the one guy who I think he's technically an old lineman that had that toss on the fake punt.
Mm-hmm.
They combined for 136-yard passing. Quinn Ewers had basically 360 at 358.
Yeah.
On the running side, Georgia, ETN had 94 and 2 touchdowns. The team rushed for 141, and Texas rushed for 31. And if you take out the quarterback sacks, Georgia rushed for 158, and Texas rushed for 50. So 100-point differential when the other team couldn't get the passing game going. They're already on their backup quarterback, and Trevor Etienne kind of took over this game and was the driving offensive force for Georgia, while Texas never got anything going in the rush, and they were just forced to throw, and then they couldn't score touchdowns.
Yeah, it was a fun game to watch, but a little boring. But yeah, Texas, you got me kicking yourself.
As you mentioned, a little boring in the first half, but the last couple minutes, Texas timed the game. The heartbreaking pick by Stockton seemed like they had the game put away. All of those made the game pretty exciting towards the end, and obviously overtime was pretty intense. We also had the Sun Belt Championship. We all know we were locked into that. Marshall absolutely dominated Louisiana Lafayette 31-3. Then we've got the Big Ten Championship game, Sam. Now, if you wanted offense, you watched the Big Ten Championship because Oregon took down Penn State 45-37.
Yeah, this game was a lot of fun. Quite the opposite of the previous championship games. A lot of scoring, a lot of points, which I didn't expect, especially with Penn State's defense. Even though Oregon came up on top, I think this was a huge boost of confidence for Penn State. Obviously, not known for that tremendous high-scoring offense. They're wear you down with a run game and lock you down on defense. That wasn't the case. They had to score points, and they competed for most of this game. But it came down to interesting decision by James Franklin where they went for 2 early in the fourth quarter, didn't get down by 8, and Oregon kind of took over from there. So I mean, it's obviously a little different now with 12 teams because, again, both of these teams are locks. But, I mean, not surprising, Oregon's been the best team all season, just absolutely dominating everybody. Dylan Gabriel looked phenomenal as always. Pez Johnson's a receiver that a lot of people aren't talking about was actually named the game MVP. 11 passes at 181 yards, 1 touchdown, looked great. And I mean, this big Oregon offense is a workhorse, man. They have so many weapons at every position, and they're going to be tough to stop going into the college football playoffs, and it's going to be fun watching.
Yes, no doubt. I think you hit on a couple important things here. Number one, I mean, there are no moral victories in a Big Ten championship game. You either win the Big Ten or you don't. But the way this game started, it could have gotten ugly quick. And that is not a style of football Penn State wants to play. Like we kind of talked about, they don't want to have to score 40 points to be in a game. And, well, that's what happened here. They had to score, and they could. And not many people, myself included, thought they could. So I can't say that I'm, if I'm a Penn State fan or someone just looking at the outlook of the playoff. Overall, Penn State had a pretty impressive performance, but as you said, this Oregon offense is an absolute machine, well-oiled, top to bottom. Dylan Gabriel has been playing awesome football all year long. We all know his experience. Obviously, multiple years at Oklahoma, had some good years with them. Now with Oregon, just he looks unbelievable, and this offense looks unbelievable. But all hope is not lost for Penn State. You mentioned both teams were pretty much a lock to be in. Oregon obviously gets that number 1 seed in that bye. Penn State may or may not have come out as the big winner of the weekend with the way the bracket ended up. So, Penn State, all hope is not lost. Oregon, special season, 13-0, unequivocally the best team in college football right now. And they earned themselves the number 1 seed. So, pretty impressive stuff there. But I do want to shout out this Penn State rushing game because that was the main reason why they were in this. Almost 300 yards on the ground, 2 backs over 100 yards. Penn State's rushing game was very impressive in this game. Kept them in, and that, I mean, it seems like if they're going to make a run, which we mentioned their slot and their strength of path, I guess, to get into to make a run here, it's probably going to be on the back of that running game to help get that offense going.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we will cap it off with the ACC championship game. SMU and Clemson. Clemson wins on a last-second field goal, winning 34-31.
Yeah, this game was awesome. Didn't seem that way in the first half, though, Tanner. Clemson went into halftime up 24-7, but the SMU Mustangs did not quit. They came out slinging the damn ball. Kevin Jennings leading that offense, threw for 310 and 3 touchdowns, ran a score in, but we can talk about how this game progressed, but really it comes down to late in the fourth quarter, SMU goes up with about 30 seconds left, and the game kind of looked going into overtime. SMU kicks it off. Adam Randall, who was a high-level recruit, hasn't really panned out for Clemson, made his mark on this game with a 41 kickoff return, giving the ball to Clemson at their own 45. Klubnik found his receiver for a 17-yard gain with 3 ticks left, and they set up the game-winning kick, the longest in the ACC history, or ACC championship game history. And that's how Clemson got done. And somehow, some way, they are now in the college football playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, a season we pronounced them dead, getting absolutely run through by Georgia to start the year. They were dead. What happened to Dabo Sweeney? He doesn't get in the transfer portal. All in all, they're back in the playoff, as we said, or as you just said. So, yeah, real impressive stuff. I mean, I think the most important thing we can take away from this game is the fact that it was close and the fact that SMU mounted this really impressive comeback.
Yeah.
Because Sam, let's face it, Georgia runs away with this game. They beat SMU by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. SMU's probably not in the playoff.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But as you said, the key here was the big return after SMU tied it. I believe it was under a minute left. The big return set them up to really have a chance to go for it. They did. They were able to kick the field goal as time expired to win this game. Clemson with the auto bid. They did come in at that 5 slot, being surpassed by Arizona State and Boise State. And SMU sneaks in at that 11 seed, with Clemson being the 12, I believe. So yeah, SMU was still ranked higher than Clemson, even though they just lost. But that wraps it up for conference championship week. As we said, a little up and down, some blowouts, some good games, some overtime, some offense, some defense, all of the above. But of course, at the end of championship week, we get the official NCAA bracket, which I am pulling up at the moment, and we will go through and kind of talk about where everything sits. So in that 1 seed, we mentioned Oregon, of course, coming off of their championship of the Big Ten. In that 2 seed, we have Georgia. In that 3 seed, Boise. 4 seed, Arizona State. Now, the 5-12 matchup, winner of this goes on to play Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. That's going to be 12 Clemson going to Austin to take on Texas in Austin. Then the 8-9 matchup to where the winner goes on to goes to the Rose Bowl to take on Oregon. Tennessee's got to go to Columbus and take on Ohio State. The 11-6 SMU has to go to Happy Valley to take on Penn State. Winner goes and plays in the Fiesta Bowl versus Boise. And then in that 7-10, we have the battle for Indiana, with number 10 Indiana going to South Bend, take on Notre Dame. Winner goes to the Sugar Bowl to take on Georgia. So that's the field. Sam, anything stand out to you right off the bat?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of briefly mentioned it when talking about that Big Ten championship. I really like Penn State's path to at least the quarterfinals. SMU, it's very clear. Penn State's a better team. And then they face a Boise State team where you really only have to stop one player. Obviously, that player is probably the best player in college football. But if anybody can do it, it's Penn State's defense. Penn State known for their tremendous defense. The only worry I have with Penn State is Drew Allard quarterback play, not the most consistent guy in the world, and the inability of James Franklin to win in big games. He's got a big game, and the possibility of just overlooking these first 2 matchups is a scary thing. But I really like Penn State to at least to get quarterfinals, if not further.
Yeah, that's what stands out to me as well. Penn State, the big winner, taking on SMU. If they win, going to Boise, I think those are probably the 2. Ask anyone in the field who the 2 teams you'd like to play. It's probably SMU and Boise. So definitely a great draw for Penn State. But I do have some questions for you, Sam, because right now I'm looking at Penn State in that 6 and Ohio State in that 8. Now, Ohio State is 10-2. Penn State 11-2. Ohio State beat Penn State in Happy Valley. Do you agree with putting Penn State ahead of Ohio State. With that one more win, going to the Big 12 champion or Big 10 championship game, but they do have that loss head to head.
Now the question is what I believe, not what the committee believes. Correct.
Correct. What do you agree?
I think Ohio State. I have a personal problem with majority of these seeds. Tanner, to be honest with you, okay. I think there are some flaws with this system. So if it was strictly up to me, I would probably put Ohio State at the 6, but it's very clear the committee has made a statement that the conference championship means more than regular season. And I personally disagree, but they stood on what they believe. So
yeah.
But yeah, I would put Ohio State over.
Yeah, because I went back and forth with this, and I think originally I agreed with you that head-to-head win should mean something. But then I thought about it, and I think I ultimately might agree with the committee because Penn State had the opportunity to play in the conference championship game because they had a better record than Ohio State. You know, it was 11-1 versus 10-2. As Bart Simpson, I believe, throws a touchdown to Ralph. We all know Ralph from The Simpsons, right? And Krusty the Clown goes crazy. This is electric stuff, by the way. I mean, I think Lisa Simpson had a 14 or 15-yard run a little bit ago. This rocks. But back to the football. You know, I think I'm very glad they're not punishing teams for playing in the, you know, in the conference championship. And I say, you know, because they were talking about it on College Football Game Day, and one of the guys said they're not punishing them for playing, they're punishing them for losing, which I get. However, I think it's one thing if you're SMU. Now, again, to be clear, I'm glad they put SMU in, but I think it's one thing if you're SMU and you're playing against 18th ranked Clemson. If you lose that game, that's tough. Penn State had to go against the number 1 overall team, a team that everyone in the country, if they went up against the number 1 overall team, they probably lose that game. So I think not punishing Penn State for losing to Oregon in a game which we all said we thought they played pretty well, and the only reason they got to play in was because they had a better record than Ohio State. Because if they didn't have that better record and Ohio State plays in that conference championship game, like Oregon's probably still favored, and Oregon probably still has a good chance to win that football game. So I'm glad they didn't punish it, especially when they go against number 1 seed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what stands out to us. And I think the other thing, Sam, we need to talk about is I think the team that probably got screwed the most is Oregon. Hey, here's the 1 seed. Oh, by the way, you have to play the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee.
Yeah. It makes no sense. The seeding is awful, Tanner.
I think I can fix it with one simple rule. Reseed.
Yeah.
No matter who wins in that first or in that first round there, the lowest seed should play the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
You should shuffle the bracket and reseed. If, let's say, by some way, Clemson beats Texas, Clemson shouldn't play Arizona State. They should play Oregon.
Yeah.
That solves everything, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
Because, to be honest with you, I kind of like the bye. There was some criticism for buys for conference champions. I kind of like that. I think you should be rewarded. But if you do it, you got to reseed.
Yeah.
You got to reseed.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you on all conference champions getting buys. I mean, sure, you can say a conference champion, but reflect that in the rankings. I mean, Arizona State is 12 in the rankings, and somehow they have a bye week. I don't necessarily agree with that. just because they won one game, I think is kind of BS. I think it's a pretty simple fix. I am perfectly okay with the conference champions getting an auto bid. I think that's a good thing, but to give the group of five most highest ranked a bye, and then the 12th team in the nation a bye is crazy to me. But just do it like college basketball. It's like I think that is kind of a perfect system. Yeah, sure, get in, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have a bye, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't hate if they changed it, but I think in this buy scenario that I said I do like, again, which I do like that they get the buy, but you got to reseed. You can't have this where Oregon, the number one seed, gets rewarded by having to play Ohio State or Tennessee. You got to reseed if you do it. But I think it's going to be a learning process for sure. And I think I'm pretty confident, and I assume most people are, that we're probably going to have a different set of rules for the seeding next year, because I don't think a lot of people are, it made sense in theory, but now that we look at it, it's like, maybe this wasn't the best. Maybe this wasn't the best idea to do it that way. But college football playoff starts on Friday, December 20th, and this should be awesome. We mentioned our problems with the seeding, but at the end of the day, we have some pretty damn good college football coming up at the end of the month. We have Indiana, Notre Dame on Friday the 20th, and then SMU, Penn State, Tennessee, Ohio State, and Clemson, Texas, all on Saturday the 21st. Then the quarterfinals will take place. They are on New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, as they are those New Year's Six bowls. The semifinals, semifinals do not have a date, so I do not know when those are playing, but the championship is on the 20th. So it should be some awesome football. Anything else to wrap up the championship week and the college football selection?
No, I don't think so, man.
All right. Well, I guess the only other thing to talk about would be the fallout from it, because for some reason, Sam, some people have looked at the decisions from the committee, and they've come to the conclusion that there's no incentive to schedule tough non-conference games. Can you explain to me where that's coming from?
Yeah, I don't really know,
because you know who's saying it.
And the semis are January 10th and 9th. So
9th and 10th. But this is coming from Alabama fans and the Alabama AD. We're going to take a look at our non-conference scheduling and kind of revamp it. Okay, so we won't have the pleasure of watching you play Mercer next year. Mercer, USF, Wisconsin, and one more cupcake. I can't remember who was off the top of my head, but you get the point. Those were their non-con. The reason Alabama is not in the field is not because they went out and played, I don't know, Oregon in the non-con, or they played Ohio State in the non-con and lost those games. No. It's because they lost to 6-6 Oklahoma. It's because they lost to 6-6 Vanderbilt. That's why.
Yeah.
It's not the non-con.
Yeah.
So you can revamp your non-con all you want. You keep losing to bad SEC teams, you will keep missing the playoff.
Yeah, as Western Kentucky was the other one.
Of course, the team who lost to Jacksonville State 52-12.
Yeah, I read that. I was like, okay, yeah, it's just weird.
Makes no sense.
It has nothing to do with your non-con. I mean, the non-con, you beat the shit out of everybody you played, as you should. But losing to Vandy and losing to Oklahoma, who were both bad, let's put it how it is, they were both bad football teams. And you're bitching about non-con is just humorous. And it's funny. It's funny seeing Alabama.
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
And now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the first playoff
This is the first.
And it's the first one with 12 teams.
Yep.
Yikes.
Think they're missing Saban?
Yeah, I'd say so. But yeah, no, it had nothing to do with the non-con. I think my favorite tweet around all this, of course, it was some SEC guy saying, anyone who thinks SMU deserves is crazy. Like Alabama's the better team, and let's face it, SMU would be 500 if they were in the SEC. And then someone quote tweeted and said, "Good, then they'd probably beat Bama because they lost to two 500 SEC teams." Point.
That's
proven.
Good. That's good.
I thought that
that's
one was
good.
great.
That's good. I like that.
I thought that one was great. So we're all on the same page here. Just none of this was about the non-con. The committee still values tough non-con. It's the bad losses in con. That's the issue that Alabama had on their resume. But yeah, I think that's going to wrap it up for the playoff talk. But Sam, sticking with college football, we have the Heisman finalists announced. Of course, we mentioned how this is kind of a two-man race between Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter. The other two names joining them in New York for the Heisman ceremony are Cam Ward from Miami and Dylan Gabriel from Oregon.
Yeah, talking about obviously the conversations, Jeanty and Travis Hunter, but I mean, every year we have the guy who's on the best player on the best team. That's literally every year. Well, or the quarterback, I should say, of the best team. I mean, AJ McCarron was one, and his highlight tape was 29 wins as quarterback. That was one of his things. Now, obviously, I'm not comparing Dylan Gabriel to AJ McCarron. He had a phenomenal year, but he's not even the best quarterback in the country. I do think Cam Ward deserves a spot in this race. I think he was by far and away the best quarterback. Unfortunately, his defense just sucks because Miami was a top dog for majority of the year. Cam Ward putting up astronomical numbers week in, week out. So I do kind of think they got the four best players. I'm sure some guys you could replace Dylan Gabriel with, but the top three for sure, best player. But it's going to come down to Jeanty and Travis Hunter, and I hate to say this because I don't think this is true, but I think they're going to go with the flashy pick and give it to Travis Hunter because he's on probably one of the most popular teams. He's probably one of the most popular players, and he plays both ways. And I'm not downplaying his play. I do think he is a elite wide receiver. He's an absolute stud. He's average at quarterback. I mean, Banner, he has, I think, 4 or 5 picks this year. You know who also has 5 picks? Jay Higgins, a linebacker of the Iowa Hawks. Now, if you look at his stats and national ranking, he doesn't have the most tackles, which I think is a good thing. You don't want your cornerback tackling. Mm-hmm. But the big thing with Hunter is snaps, which I don't think should be counted towards impressive stat. I think Jeanty should win. He's had the best performances, and frankly, that means you're the best player. And I know and I would say he's facing better competition than Travis Hunter this year. So if I had a vote, it'd be Jeanty, no questions asked. But I do think it'll be Hunter, which sucks because any other year, Jeanty's winning by 1 million.
You and I are in lockstep in this, my friend. If I had a vote, I'm going Jeanty as well. To me, snaps aren't an NFL stat. They're all right, NFL. It's not a college stat. It's not a football stat. Snaps. What does that even mean? I don't know. And you mentioned the competition. Yeah, the competition argument holds zero weight when the Big 12 was the way it was. Ashton Jeanty was the most valuable player on his team, a team that has a bye in the college football playoff, a team that went to Eugene and had Oregon on the ropes early on in the season. A team, it wasn't a team that lost to Kansas, who lost to UNLV, who Boise State just beat on the back of Ashton Jeanty. So clearly the competition thing doesn't hold any weight. Ashton Jeanty is my Heisman. Obviously, I'm very confident that Travis Hunter will win. But, it is what it is. Travis Hunter is very good at football. He will be a top 2 pick in the draft. Whichever the first non-quarterback needy team to draft will probably draft Travis Hunter, and he's very good. But yeah, Ashton Jeanty to me was the best player in college football. So that's who I'm giving it to. And it sounds like that's who you're giving it to as well. But that's kind of a bow on the regular season, Sam. There's not much else to talk about here. We did have some other bowl announcements, some of the highlights. We have a rematch from a year ago, Sam. What was the Rose Bowl a year ago in the college football playoff is now the ReliaQuest Bowl, formerly the Outback Bowl, with essentially zero meaning. And that is, of course, Bama, Michigan, falling from grace, going from a college football playoff matchup to a ReliaQuest Bowl matchup. Interesting they play in back-to-back years, but yeah, believe it or not, I don't think anyone cares about this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other one is Iowa. Iowa going to the Music City Bowl to take on Mizzou. So who knows? Obviously, they're sure to be opt-outs.
Thank God Luther's not playing.
Yep. Luther Burden won't play. Caleb Johnson won't play.
Johnson, Jamari Harris. I do think Harris won't Higgins play.
Higgins and Nick Jackson
aren't playing.
I believe they are as well.
Not that it matters when you don't have a quarterback, but
Kirk said something about how he's like optimistic Sullivan will be ready. Mm-hmm. What are we supposed to do with that information? I don't know. Who it could be Stratton, could be Sullivan. We don't know, and we don't know what's going on with Missouri either. So more certainly to come on that stretch. But yeah, anything else you got with the college football season?
Not really, man. It was a fun one. A lot of ups and downs. Iowa somehow, some way pulled out an 8-4 season with 2 god awful losses, but that's how Iowa rolls. It's gonna be super fun breaking down these college football playoff games. I think that Indiana Notre Dame is going to be an insane game. I'm really excited to see how the home games are.
Yes.
What the atmosphere like? Is it going to be a true college football experience, or is Mike going to rule all and it's going to be a bunch of corporate guys
commercialized,
which sucks? Which would suck. I'd be pissed.
Of course.
Yeah, I would. But we'll see. It's going to be super fun.
And I'm interested specifically in that Notre Dame Indiana game because, those two schools aren't far from each other.
Yeah.
How many Indiana people, obviously Indiana, not a school that is used to playing in big football games. So how many of them make that trip to South Bend? That'll be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's going to be fun. As much as I don't think they got the scene right, I'm going to watch every game and enjoy every second of it. It's going to be electric.
Yeah, and I think I want to make one thing abundantly clear. I did it last year when we had the debacle with Florida State. People were upset that Florida State didn't make it, and I get it. But at that point, the playoff was unequivocally a good thing for football. While we don't agree with the seeding, we've mentioned that. We don't agree with the path some teams have versus other teams. The 12-team playoff is unequivocally better than the 14 playoff.
Yeah.
And more games this season throughout the regular season mattered with hugely important playoff implications when you have 12 teams versus 4. So every game, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Indiana, Colorado for a minute when they were making a little bit of a run. Arizona State, all of those teams, all of their games were under a microscope and front and center in the college football world, trying to make a push for that playoff, and it was absolutely awesome. So
Yeah.
unequivocally a good thing. We just need to iron out a few details. But at the end of the day, just win, baby. Just win. But we do have some players of the week to talk about. Obviously, it was somewhat of an abbreviated college week. We will get into a little NFL as well. We will have an NFL player of the week. But Sam, who's your college football player of the week?
Yeah, I mean, college championship weekend is always fun. We talked about some of the big performances, but this was a game we didn't talk about. I think this guy's performance deserves to be recognized, and that man is Tre Stewart for Jacksonville State, putting ass kicking to the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky. And Stewart was the main reason why. 27 carries for 201 yards at 7.4 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns, helping the Jacksonville State Gamecocks to a whopping 52-12 win. So, guys, shout out the small school guys in a crazy weekend such as the championship week.
No doubt. For mine, I'm going to go with someone who it felt just as dominant, and he was all over the field, and obviously the team was dominant as well. He's been a player of the week before, but I got to shout him out again. That's Cam Skattebo. I mean, he was absolutely unbelievable for Arizona State. One of the main reasons why they were able to handle Iowa State the way they did. He had 16 carries for 170 yards. That is over 10 yards a carry and 2 touchdowns. Best player on the field, without a doubt, was Cam Skattebo. And Arizona State, who would have thought, picked last to finish in that Big 12, is going to the college football playoff, getting a bye in the college football playoff. And that's because of number 4, Cam Skattebo. So,
yeah,
got to shout him out again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was my player of the week last week, and we were talking off air that, damn, maybe I should have saved him for this week, but that's the type of season he's had. He's been a big reason why the Arizona State Sun Devils are where they are right now in the playoffs, and it's all due to Skattebo.
No doubt. Of course, like I said, we will have an NFL player of the week this week. So, Sam, hit me with it.
Yeah, I mean, there were, to be honest with you, Terry, the main reason why we didn't really talk a whole lot of NFL, electric college football weekend.
Yes.
Can't say the same about the NFL weekend. So this might be a little underwhelming stat line, but he still was one of the best performances on Sunday. I'm going to go with the guy a lot of people aren't talking about, Zach Charbonnet for the Seattle Seahawks. Yes. A tremendous, it's kind of underappreciated performance by the Seattle Seahawks so far this season. Got a big win over the Arizona Cardinals in a really tight race coming down the stretch, but Chabonnet had 22 carries, 134 yards, 6.1 average, 2 touchdowns, have 51-yard run on that to account for that 134 yards. So, guys, shout out the running back of the week in Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad you're doing that, because if we were to talk NFL this week, I think that Seahawks Cardinals game would be one to talk about, because the Seahawks, man, I can't recall how many times we've talked about a Seahawks game on this podcast. Maybe that's egg on our face, but yeah, the Seahawks right now are 8-5, and they are breathing down the Commanders' neck for that 3rd spot. Obviously, we know how good the NFC North is, that 1 and 2 wildcard spot at this point seem to be going to the Packers and the Vikings. Obviously, the Packers, I guess, now 9-4 and now 8-5 to the Seahawks. Mm-hmm. They could catch up too. Very impressive win from the Seahawks in Arizona, and obviously Zach Charbonnet, a big reason why. And that's all. I'm going to remind you all that he's not the starter. Kenneth Walker was out that game, and he stepped up in a major way. It was one of the main reasons why the Seahawks were able to get a huge divisional win, sweeping the Cardinals, and now putting themselves in prime position to get a wild card spot and make the postseason. So shout out Zach Charbonnet. But Sam, this is going to be like my second big time moment for one of my teams this episode, because Sam, Kirk Cousins came back to Minnesota, and all he did was get stomped around by the big dog in town, and that is Sam Darnold. He is my player of the week. Now, there are about 4 Minnesota Vikings you could have chosen.
Yeah.
I guess more. There are about 3 with him, Addison, and Jefferson each having 100 plus and 2 touchdowns. Addison having 3. But of course, Sam Darnold was magnificent in this game. Sam, he threw for 347 yards and 5 touchdowns, 0 picks. He was absolutely unequivocally the better quarterback in this football game. Kirk Cousins, classic Kirk Cousins fashion. He threw for 344, but threw for 2 picks, and his team kind of got dominated. Sam Darnold was the better option, it's insane that at this point, with Sam Darnold as the quarterback, he is playing MVP level football, and the Minnesota Vikings are 11-2 and just took down the Falcons, who signed away your previous quarterback. You beat him by 21 points.
Yeah, that's got to feel good.
Feels great. It feels absolutely freaking great. And Sam Darnold with 5 touchdowns, basically 350 yards passing, 347 to be exact. And I know we talk a little bit about it, but I can't keep quarterback rating, passer rating, all of those stats straight. There are about 4 of them that basically sound like the same thing, and I don't know which one is which. But I know one of them, a perfect score, is like 158.3. And I think Sam Darnold graded at 157.9. I think he was 0.4 away from a perfect rating.
Yeah.
You can't play a much better football game than that. And 14 is a big reason. I mean, obviously, is a big reason why the Vikings are 11-2. Was magnificent in this game, and the Vikings keep rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely could have nominated Jordan Addison and Jefferson. They were the 2 main targets for Sam Darnold, but wanted a little difference in the player of the week. But yeah,
No doubt.
Those 3 against their former quarterback called out. And, the Vikings just keep rolling, man. It's going to be interesting how that tight race you previously mentioned plays out.
Yeah, right now, I mean, the 2 of them combined for 15 receptions, 265 yards, and 5 touchdowns.
Yeah. Amen.
That ain't bad at all. But yeah, I mean, it was a euphoric Sunday between the Vikings absolutely smacking Kirk Cousins and then the Mets pulling through for Juan Soto. So it was awesome to see. And Sam Darnold, I mean, obviously the plan was always Sam Darnold in that 1 year, pivot to JJ McCarthy. I still think that's the plan. I still think that should be the plan. Day by day, it's getting harder and harder to say goodbye to Sam Darnold, and that's just how well he's been playing.
Yeah, hard to argue.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But we mentioned that we will not be doing Pick'em this week. We will return when bowl season gets going. But Sam, I believe we have our final guest picker ratings, and we may or may not have a predicament on our hands.
Yeah, it was a great week for Carol. She had a rough go. She got 3 points.
It happens.
Tough. I would say the toughest weekend of Pick'em. I don't think there's much argument there, but we do have a predicament. Ron, Alonzo, and Eric are all tied for 8. No one got into double digits as our guest picker. I think he did in back-to-back weeks, so hats off to you. No one got that perfect 11, which is kind of crazy, Tanner. But yeah. So we're in a bit of predicament. We are it's going to come down to two. We're either going to have all three of them on, do a little bowl game, pick them, or we're just saying, so it's hard enough to get one guest picker a week. We might just post their picks on our social media. So stay tuned for that. We'll have an announcement on all our socials.
No doubt. And yeah, make sure to follow the socials. We'll, of course, have an update on our pick'em rankings after this past week. So definitely keep an eye out for that. But Sam, I think that's a wrap for episode 151 is what I would say if we didn't have a question. We do have a question. Got you all right there. I got you all. But this one coming from Carol Gotzi, actually, last week's guest picker. And she said she wants to know, what is our favorite Christmas present of all time?
Yeah, this one's interesting. I had a lot of good ones. At face value, I will say probably the coolest birthday present I've ever gotten was tickets to the Iowa Rose Bowl game. I mean, the granddaddy of them all. First time in LA.
And then the game was canceled.
Rain. Which sucks. Yeah. It's actually snow, which was crazy.
There you go.
But at face value, I will say that's probably one of the best ones I've ever gotten. But as the whole thing, I got some concert tickets to Tortuga Music Festival. For those of you who don't know, I'm a huge concert goer, and three of my favorite artists were there. Luke Combs, nice. Morgan Wallen, Thomas Rhett on the beach down in Fort Lauderdale is freaking awesome. So I'd say that's probably one of the best ones I've ever had.
No doubt. I had a couple immediately pop into mind. I think number one, of course, you know, there's always that one when you were a kid that you got that was just the best moment ever. And for me, that's when I got my first laptop for Christmas. And I think one of the reasons why, I mean, it was like the OG MacBook, like the thick, thick, there was no such thing as, you know, getting texts or anything on your laptop at that point. It was absolutely awesome. It lasted for me forever until it finally crapped out. But like just when I was a kid, like it was when I was very young. There was no such thing as a smartphone where I could just pick up my phone. Not that I have one at that age, but I couldn't just pick up a phone and go to Google, like check my fantasy team or look at football jerseys all day long. And that's what I was able to do with when I got my laptop. I just spent hours searching the internet, playing computer games on my own laptop. It was the best thing in the world, man. And so that one came to mind. I remember just spending hours and hours and hours doing everything from, like I said, just looking at football jerseys.
Yeah.
Because what else is a kid to do? And playing games and just all of the above. It was absolutely awesome. And then the other one is that comes to mind is when I got my next gen console. I first started with the Xbox One, but like when I got that, it was like, you know, the next gen console was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
So plugging that in, getting that thing ready to go, and putting the new Call of Duty on and all of that stuff. There was nothing better. So those are the two that come to mind. But I think if I had to give it to one, I'm going with the laptop. As a kid, that was the best thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. But now I believe that is it for episode 151. A little bit of a shorter episode, a little bit more of a college heavy episode. College football was the number one thing on pretty much everybody's minds this past weekend with conference championships and the college football playoff, which we agree. We think the teams they got in are right. Not so sure about their seeding. But, of course, we started with winners and losers. Juan Soto's historic contract with the New York Mets. The Mets are now the big dog in town. Sorry, Yankees, what that meant for Mets fans everywhere, myself included. Recapped the week in college football, talked about the playoff, talked about the Heisman a little bit, and, of course, finished off with some players of the week and some questions. But make sure to follow the podcast at crunchtime_pod on X, TikTok, and Instagram, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube Crunch Time with the N326 duo. But the clock has run on this episode, and we'll see you in the next one on Crunch Time.
Yeah.